What's the youngest patient that you've operated on?
The youngest patient I've done vaginoplasty on is age 16.
Do you worry that minors just don't understand enough about themselves? They're not neurologically developed enough yet to make permanent life-altering decisions?
Absolutely not. It's exciting. And you know who gets it right? Is this next generation.
Yeah, tell that to all the 18, 19, 20-year-olds who decided on a college degree and realized after they got into the workforce that it was the wrong decision that they made when they chose their field. Hello and welcome back. Please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed because YouTube does unsubscribe people every single day. You can find me on Rumble and on Twitter. I am desperately in need of followers over there. I do appreciate all of you stopping by and supporting my work. Please get the word out about my channel. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. Once I reach 1,000, I can actually make money off of my YouTube channel. That might not be important to you, but it would be nice if I could actually get a little something in return for my time making these videos, because they do take a lot of time out of my day. So this is Dr. Marci L. Bowers. I don't know Dr. Bowers' real name because that's not the name that Dr. Bowers was given upon birth, and we're going to find out why. So this is part of the Matt Walsh What is a Woman documentary. I didn't see this one floating around. I want to do all of the different interviews, and it's interesting. In this interview, Dr. Bowers gives a definition for woman. This is the second interview that Matt Walsh did in the documentary, so it would have been a really short movie if he had just used this definition. But let's go ahead and dive into the interview here and see what I can add to the conversation.
First of all, thanks for talking to us.
My pleasure.
So you're a world-renowned gynecologist and surgeon. You're also a transgender woman. Can you tell me a little bit about...
Well, I identify as a woman.
Now, I kind of have mixed feelings about this part right here. Let's go on. She has a little bit more to say about this. Let's listen to that first.
But
You're a woman, right?
I'm a woman that's my life, day to day.
Okay. So I can respect that you're not calling yourself trans, because there comes a point when you have transitioned. You're no longer the middle gender. You're no longer in between. You are either male or female. And at least this doctor acknowledges that. I don't know if when the rubber hits the road, if this individual would go, no, there's 55 different genders or not. I don't know. It doesn't come up in the interview.
But I have a transgender history.
So one thing on your website, it says GAV, gender affirming vaginoplasty.
Mm-hmm.
What is that exactly?
A vaginoplasty is creation of female.
Wait a second. Did I just see a wedding ring on the finger there? Let me go back. Let's look at the left hand. Looks like there's a ring right there, but let's watch and see if it's
This creation of.
Can't tell, but I mean, somebody married Dr. Bowers. Wow, that's I think Blair White has a boyfriend. If that's what you want to do, human beings are human beings, as long as you feel comfortable with that person.
Female, a female vagina and vulva. We're altering the physical characteristics of the individual to fit better with a gender identity that is female.
This is all constructed from the penis?
Yes, that's right. The surgeries are quite refined in the sense that they really, not only do they look like female anatomy, but they also function that way, for the most part. I mean, certainly it's a bit of a Faustian bargain. It's not perfect.
I think everybody already knows that, but just in case you weren't aware, that we can't actually make new reproductive organs that are the same as what you would naturally be born with. And some of them might be saying, well, that doesn't matter because look at all the different varieties of people who they experience their reproductive organs in a different way. Everybody has a different experience with that, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, there's not that much wiggle room when it comes down to that, as you might think. Yeah, there are some extreme outliers, but for the most part, people are going to be within the same 5 or 10 percentile.
Does anyone ever regret their surgeries? Or, well, we know they do, but how often do people regret their surgeries?
Well, actually, we don't know that they do. There are legitimate detransitioners.
Oh, we don't know that they regret their surgery, but there's legitimate detransitioners. Okay. I'm sorry. But there are people out there who do regret their transition.
And there are people who truly feel that in their journey, they may have made a mistake. Now, fortunately, this is a really, really uncommon phenomenon.
I don't know how common it is or uncommon it is. I think the transitioning period is a really uncommon phenomenon. So out of those individuals who transition, what is the percentage that regret it? I wish I knew. I wish I had those numbers. Maybe I'll pop them up on the screen if I find them. So I got the numbers right here. 11% of women and 4% of men detransition. Now, I watched the documentary a few years ago, I Want My Sex Back. I will leave a link to it down below. In that documentary, there was a woman, I guess you could use woman in quotes, who claims to want to revert back to a man, but cannot, and has been wanting to revert back for decades. So even though it says right here we have 11% of women and 4% of men who actually do detransition, those numbers are probably much higher. Now Walsh, if you don't know who Walsh is, he's some sort of a left-wing pundit, like hardcore progressive. He made an 1.5 hour long video debunking the I Want My Sex Back documentary, and I'm sure that he is right on everything that he says in there, because nobody ever wants to detransition. But we have the numbers right here in front of you. So I'm guessing that Walsh is wrong, and that the people in the documentary are telling the truth. And even if they're not telling the truth, we know that there are people who want to detransition and the people that do detransition.
If you've ever heard of people in the trans-abled community, these are people who are physically able-bodied but feel like they should be disabled or identify as such. For example, a man who has 2 arms but feels like he should have 1. If a man in this kind of marginalized community went to the doctor and said, I want to have my arm cut off, do you think that
doesn't have anything to do with gender identity?
Yeah, actually it does, because this person is identifying as a person who is disabled or disfigured. And a person who is identifying as the opposite gender is identifying as a person who has mutilated genitalia, or has their genitals changed significantly, changed completely, actually. So how is that much different from a person who says, like, oh yeah, my arm does not belong on my body?
well, it's someone's self-identity, how someone identifies?
That's someone who has and I'll accept it as a mental diagnosis, a psychiatric condition. I don't even pretend to know what aptomenophilia is all about.
But trans is a legitimate condition that people have, that they need to mutilate their bodies, change their bodies surgically.
But somehow it's the idea that you're fascinated or charmed by having a limb or part of a limb missing. Okay, I would say that's, pardon my non-medical language, kooky.
Yeah, wanting to have my wiener cut off is kooky. I would agree with that. You're right. And I consider that one of the most important limbs on my body, if not the most important limb on my whole body. So I'm sorry that you don't understand this, Dr. Bowers, but maybe you don't deserve your medical degree.
You don't see any? You think this is totally irrelevant?
Yep.
So the biggest, broadest question is, but what is a woman?
A woman is it's a combination of your physical attributes and then what you're showing to the world and the gender clues that you give. And hopefully those match your gender identity.
So there you go. There's the definition. It's a manifestation of your physical characteristics along with what you're presenting to the world. Could you tell me how that works for any other part of humanity? Your racial identity is your physical identity plus what you're presenting to the world. We're going to come back to this in a little bit.
The critics on the other side of this, of this issue.
There aren't many.
There aren't many. Only about 50% of the American population, which is the 3rd most populated country in the world, in case you were not aware.
But go ahead.
There aren't many who would disagree with what you're saying about?
Well, the dinosaurs.
Dr. Marci L. Bowers, you are older than me by a lot, and I disagree with you. So am I a dinosaur? Is that what is the definition of a dinosaur? I thought that when you referred to a human being as a dinosaur, you were talking about somebody who is old, not somebody who is younger than you. And I mean, Marci is actually 63. So that's not young, right? You're talking about being elderly at that age. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you here. This is just ridiculous.
The world are certainly out there. Yeah.
So there was more to this interview. Let me play some of these other parts that were scattered throughout the documentary.
There are some slight differences, but does it translate to a competitive advantage? I think you'd be very hard-pressed to prove that.
So for those of you who are not watching and only listening, they showed a montage. There's actually a much longer montage in the documentary of these men who think that they are born in the wrong body and subsequently compete against women in sporting events, and them dominating the biological female competitors. And we see this all over the place in competitive sports today. We see Fallon Fox breaking women's skulls when he punches them. Hannah Mountsie down in Australia, who's like 6'4" or something and like covered in muscle and is competing against women. And of course, most famously now, Leah Thomas. But I heard a man who was pretending to be a woman on NPR talk about being in a marathon, and running and failing to win, coming in third. But again, like I brought up before in a previous video, what position was this individual placing when he was competing against other men? That's a question. That's a legitimate question. Did you improve your standing? Third place is also a win. You might have gone from losing completely to, hey, look, I got at least a little bit of a win. And did you practice? Did you prepare for the race? And how much did you practice and prepare for the race? And on top of that, are you actually being honest? Did you push yourself as hard as you could? Or did you go, you know what, I'm just going to come in third? That way it proves that trans women don't have that much of a competitive advantage? Who knows? There's lots of questions that I have regarding this situation. And we know that a man is just going to be stronger and faster than a woman, period. That's just how it is. So that translates to a win in most competitive sporting events. So we see this individual who is apparently nobody talking, and Dr. Bowers has a great response to this sort of thing. Let's see what it is.
My agenda is to show little boys that they don't have to be like as stereotypically masculine, that they can like paint their nails and wear earrings and like still be a guy, and like it can be cool.
So you worry that there could be a sort of social contagion element of this?
A teeny tiny bit, maybe.
Are you sure about that, Dr. Bowers? Are you sure? Because we see a huge increase in the number of people coming out as trans these days. You are telling me that we have like 5% of the population is somehow magically born in the wrong body. Yeah, I'm supposed to believe that, Mm-hmm. So you're encouraging people to go through life-altering, irreversible changes that they don't have to go through, that are dangerous and that can lead to all sorts of weird complications, and that they potentially are going to be unhappy with and can't reverse at all, period. And even if they can reverse them, there's no guarantee they can 100% reverse them, no matter what they do. Okay. Yeah, this person needs to have their medical license pulled immediately. And now we're on to the answer to the question. The big question. What is the big question, of course? What is a woman? What does Dr. Bowers really have to say about this?
Some of it is, based on biology. Some of it is based on hormones. Some of it is based on what you wear and how you present yourself.
A woman is not anything in particular. There's no one particular thing.
There is not one particular thing.
Wait a second, what? I have a question. Excuse me. I have one question there. How do you know if you are one? How do you know if you're not one? If it's not one thing? If you have very dark brown skin and kinky hair and brown eyes, that is what you are presenting to the world. But you tell everybody that you are Japanese. Do you think that maybe that has nothing to do with your race then, if you're saying you're Japanese? You were born in Japan, but you're not actually an Asian person, an Eastern Asian person, no matter what you tell people. For example, you can tell people you're whatever age you want to be. Doesn't mean you are that age. Anyway, that's all I got for this time. I'm going to do more of these. I will let you be the judge of Dr. Marci Bowers here. But I think I laid out my case pretty well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.